My name is Dan Roarty and I'm the lead character artist at Microsoft on the Gears of War franchise. We're pretty fortunate that we have directors at our company who've actually worked on the Gears of War franchise for quite a few years. So that's been a staple in us progressing forward with continuing the franchise. For me, it's been awesome because I've always loved Gears of War, and there's always been a huge push on quality, especially at the Coalition and Microsoft, to just keep pushing things forward. So basically at the cutting edge of technology meeting art, basically at the same time. So I love it. Gears of War especially is a very cinematic driven, story driven game and franchise. And I mean, those are the kind of games that I love to do, being able to blend technology and art together and push things forward. Like, we do quite a few updates and skins with characters quite a bit. We basically try to give the audience, and the gamers what they want. So on our end, we're constantly updating maps, characters, and skins. I basically look after the creatures and humans and the armor, and then we have another lead artist, Eugene. He takes care of all our weapons and vehicles. Weapons are definitely separate, but if we're working on a character with armor and stuff, our character artists, if they're tasked with creating a character, everything on that character they build from the bottom up. They model it, texture it, do the shading, do the hair, blend shapes. And especially the armor, even if it's hard surface and stuff, our character artists, they all own it. A lot of games now, we do multiplayer, which it's a universe, but the story is just continually going on and on and on. With multiplayer games, you have an idea of the story because you've played the game, but it's never ending. It keeps going. And you find other games are actually the same way. We have the ability to basically interact with our audience. So when you're looking at movies, it's start to finish basically the same thing. But with games, you're basically able to interact with whoever's playing it and continue to progress it forward. You actually feel like you're immersed in the universe that you're actually playing. Technology is getting closer. The thing about working on games is everything has to be real time. So you're still limited when it comes to budgets and what you're able to do, because everything has to be real time all the time. So, but I'm definitely finding that the gap, especially with movies and games, is definitely closing. Recently, it's funny, recently there was an article saying that part of Star Wars was actually rendered in Unreal real time, which is actually the first time it's ever happened. So you're starting to see the gap close between technology and imagination when it's coming to real time. It's not there yet, but it's getting closer. I think that it's probably in the past 10 years that we've only now been able to really replicate something that is basically pushing us out of the uncanny valley. When you look at films, you see, they just gave a presentation on Doctor Strange, the amount of CG you wouldn't even realize. I guess it's sometimes cheaper and easier to do things as CG as opposed to using real actors now. I think there's always going to be a little bit of hunger for realism, especially when you're trying to emote a response and to tell a story. I'm starting to see a shift now with games that it's actually not just a beginning, middle, and end. You're actually having these episodic type games that it's just continuing. And I think you're actually going to see a lot more of that, not just the start to finish gameplay, but games that continually keep updating the story and just keep pushing it forward with no end in sight, which is exciting because you can basically change things on the fly. I think you're going to see, not speaking too much about clicking buttons, but I think you're going to find that movies and games won't be as separate, I think, moving forward as people think. I think people are going to stop associating games with playing on a console and movies with going to a movie theater. I think you kind of touched on whether it's VR or some other experience, I think you're going to start seeing games and movies making basically some kind of collaboration where now it's just going to be an immersive experience as opposed to games and movies. So for me, making realistic characters and making anything real has actually been a terrible yet rewarding obsession of mine for probably a good part of 15 years. So the stride to keep pushing realism, not even just in video games, but especially with characters, or we use the word believability with our characters. It's something that it's at least ingrained in me that I've always loved keeping to push forward. And with technology and programs and rendering, especially with Unreal, we're able to keep pushing our imagination forward where now it's actually becoming a reality. I love doing the collaboration with multiple departments. So I love working with the director and the concept guys to basically hash out what the creature and what the character is going to be. And I love actually knowing the backstory as well, because it actually, you feel that you have more invested when you know a little bit more about the character as opposed to just getting a concept. So I'm pretty fortunate that I get to work really closely with a bunch of different departments. But my favorite, though, is being able to actually see a character that you've helped build or created in a cinematic experience talking, and that's pretty cool. It was funny, I was talking to a student after the class, and he was kind of asking, like, oh, I know how often you update your work and do personal stuff. And for me, it's a little bit of an obsession, but especially with how quick technology is moving and how much basically competition there is out there, it's super important. You need to constantly keep your skills up, constantly be working on stuff, and always try to stay inspired. And I think working on your own projects is definitely a good way of keeping inspired. I try to do something a little bit different each time. Like the first couple projects I dedicated to my wife and my grandma, which were very kind of, I don't want to say stark, but they were just realistic portraits of the subject I was trying to capture. I've started to have a little bit more fun with things now, and things that I find inspiring. I've been on kind of like this comic book kick lately where I've done like a Harley Quinn, a Superman. I've just finished like a Ghost in the Shell. Anything that I find that people might be interested in as well, because like being an artist, like an important part of being an artist is being able to share your work. So I try to just do new things basically all the time and just keep my skills up, but always stay inspired.